I've been reading books recently written about and by Sir William Barrett, the well-known English physicist and psychical researcher, in preparation for a documentary about him. This is now complete and it's available on YouTube. One of his books, entitled Deathbed Visions, was only published posthumously. It collected together a large amount of anecdotal material from people who had witnessed the lucid spiritual visions at the bedside of friends and family just before they died. But given the time constraints, I did not provide any examples of such cases in that video. The phenomenon is far from unusual. Barrett's book describes over 45 such cases, with other books offering even more. If you decide that the example I'm about to give is mere sentimental nonsense, then you still have to explain away these other examples also, including many collected by people such as the Italian psychical researcher Ernesto Bozzano. What follows is just one example, starting on page 56 of Barrett's book. He found it in a very rare book from 1920, The Nurseries of Heaven, by George Vale Owen, a clergyman of the Church of England, written together with Miss H.A. Dallas, and I've edited it for brevity. It records the experiences and deathbed visions during the last days of Daisy Dryden, a young girl who died in San Jose, California on October the 8th, 1864, aged just 10 years and 4 weeks. What's interesting is that the dying child had her visions while also clearly recognizing her friends on Earth and conversing with them intelligently. For Daisy Dryden, this double consciousness lasted several days, whereas for others, if it happened at all, it might last only an hour or less. Interestingly, Daisy's descriptions, which she most likely could not have been familiar with from any other source, given her young age, is in line with many of the statements previously given through numerous mediums and so-called spirits on the other side. However, what Daisy saw did not accord with her own preconceived Christian ideas of a spiritual world, although she did not doubt that she would have a future life in a spiritual body which was separate from the material body in her current life. On page 118 of The Nurseries of Heaven, her mother reported that on the whole her daughter had been a good child with ordinary good sense and was no more remarkable than many other children. Her deathbed experience was not an expression of a highly spiritual life, her mother said, nor had she been educated in the perspectives of mysticism or modern spiritualism. Daisy was born here in Marysville, California on September the 9th, 1854, which is now a 40-minute drive north of California's capital, Sacramento. In the summer of 1864, she fell ill with bilious fever, but recovered after 5 weeks and continued gaining strength in the following 2 weeks. She smiled, sang, and seemed to be herself again, until one afternoon, sitting by her bed, her father noticed both pleasure and amazement on her face. Her eyes were directed to a place above the door. So he asked, "Daisy, what is it? What do you see?" And she replied softly, "It's a spirit, it's Jesus, and he says I'm going to be one of his little lambs." "Yes, dear," her father replied, "I hope you are one of his lambs." "Oh, Papa," she exclaimed, "I'm going to heaven, to him." And that night she fell ill with enteritis, surviving only 4 more days. After 24 hours of suffering, being unable to retain food, water or medicine, she then had very little pain, despite losing strength in her frail body. But her mind remained remarkably clear, with her faculties apparently sharpened. She could remember recitations learned in school, having been fond of memorizing poetry. And her parents agreed. She loved to have us read the scriptures to her, and she assured her mother, "Mamma, when I go away, the Comforter will come to you," that's to say, the Holy Ghost or Spirit. And she added, "Maybe he'll let me come to you too sometimes. I'll ask Ali about it." Ali was her brother, who had died of scarlet fever 7 months previously, aged only 6. He seemed to be with her a great deal during those last few days. When asked questions, she would reply, "Wait till Ali comes and I'll ask him." On this occasion, after only a short time, she remarked, "Ali says I may come to you sometimes. He says it's possible, but you'll not know when I'm there, but I can speak to your thought." Commenting from the other side, once he had died, William Barrett confirmed this ability of spirit people to influence the living with their thoughts. Daisy lingered at the edge of life for 3 days, seeming to dwell in 2 worlds simultaneously. 2 days before she died, her Sunday school superintendent came to visit. She talked with him very freely about her demise, and sent a message through him to the Sunday school. When he was about to leave, the superintendent said, "Well, Daisy, you'll soon be over the dark river." And by that I think he was referring to the so-called river Styx of mythology, as shown in this illustration. She replied, "It's all a mistake. There is no river, there is no curtain, there's not even a line separating this life from the other life." And stretching out her hands, she pointed, saying, "It's here, and it's there. And I know this is so, for I can see you all. I see them there at the same time." When asked about how the other world looked to her, she said, "I can't describe it. It's so different. I could not make you understand." One morning, while a kind neighbour was putting Daisy's room in order, Mrs. W. read to her from the New Testament, "Let your heart not be troubled. In my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you." And Daisy responded, "Mansions? That means houses. I don't see real houses there, but there are places to meet each other in." Ali says nothing of houses. So she wondered if the New Testament only told about mansions, so we'd feel we have a home in heaven. "And if I do have such a home," she said, "the heavenly flowers and trees I love so much, for I do see them, and they're more beautiful than anything you could imagine, they'll be there too." When she was reminded that the Bible speaks of heaven being a beautiful city, she retorted, "Well, I don't see a city." And then she hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe I have to go there first." Mrs. W., who mentioned the mansions, came to visit Daisy regularly and told her neighbour, Mrs. B., about the spiritual sight of this dying girl. But Mrs. B. didn't believe in any future state, even though she had just lost both her husband and a 12-year-old son called Bateman. Nonetheless, one evening, she joined Mrs. W. in a visit to Daisy, and sitting beside her bed began asking questions, whereupon Daisy told her, "Bateman's here, and he says he's alive and well, and is in such a good place he would not come home for anything. He says he's learning how to be good." Bateman's mother then asked, "Has he seen his father?" To which Daisy replied, "He says he's not here, and he says to you, 'Mother, don't fret about me. It's better I did not grow up.'" The communication set Mrs. B. thinking about the afterlife, and she subsequently changed her mind about its existence. The following morning, Mrs. W., when alone with Daisy, wanted to know how she could know that Mrs. B.'s son was happy, since when he was alive on earth, Bateman had been such a bad boy, swearing, stealing and breaking Daisy's playthings. "We wouldn't let him play with you," she said, "nor with my children, because he was so bad." But Daisy responded, "Oh, Auntie, he never went to Sunday school. He was always hearing so much swearing. God knows he did not have a chance." That same day, Daisy's Sunday school teacher, Mrs. H., came to visit, and Daisy told her, "Your 2 children are here." Well, these had died several years earlier, and if they'd lived, they would have been nearly grown up. Daisy had never heard anyone speak of them, nor did the mother possess pictures of them, so Daisy could not have known of them before. When asked to describe them, she saw them as fully grown, which disagreed with their mother's ideas of what was possible. So she wanted to know how this could be. They were children when they died, she insisted. Ali says children do not stay children. They grow up there as they do in this life, Daisy replied. But my little daughter Mary fell and was so badly injured she could not stand up straight, their mother said. To which Daisy replied, well, she's all right now. She's straight and she's beautiful, and your son is looking so noble and happy. One thing Daisy seemed able to sense was celestial music, and there's a whole chapter in Barrett's Deathbed Visions book about this phenomenon. Oh, Papa, do you hear that? She'd ask. It's the singing of the angels. You ought to be able to hear it, since the room is full of it, and I can see the angels. There are so many. Mrs. W., whom we've already mentioned, lost her father a short time before Daisy's illness and wanted to know if she'd seen him on the other side with her inner sight. She brought his picture so that Daisy would recognise him. But in the evening when she came again, Daisy reported not only that she had not seen him, but that Ali, whom she'd consulted, had also not seen him. But her little brother had agreed to ask someone who could find out about him. Then, a moment later, Daisy announced, Ali's here, and he says, tell Auntie her father wants her to meet him in heaven, for he is here. To which Mrs. W. asked, why did Ali not know at once about my father? Because those who die go into different states or places, she said. They don't see each other all the time. But all good folk are in the state of the blessed. During these final days of her illness, Daisy loved listening to her sister, Lulu, singing for her, mostly from the Sunday School songbook. One chorus Lulu sang was, O come, angel band, come and around me stand. O bear me away on your snowy wings to my immortal home. In response, Daisy exclaimed, Oh, Lulu, is it not strange? We always thought the angels had wings, but it's a mistake. They don't have any. But they must have wings, Lulu insisted, or else how do they fly down from heaven? Oh, but they don't fly, she answered. They just come. When I think of Ali, he's there. So how do you see the angels? She was asked. I don't see angels all the time, but when I do, she replied, the walls seem to go away, and I can see ever so far, and you couldn't begin to count the people. Some are near, and I know them. Others I've never seen before. With her mother holding her hand, Daisy looked up wistfully at her, saying, Mamma, I do wish you could see Ali, since he's standing beside you. Involuntarily, but hopefully, Mother looked around. He says you can't see him because your spirit eyes are closed, but that I can because my body only holds my spirit by a thread of life. Mother asked, Did Ali say that just now? Yes, just now, said Daisy. So how do you speak to him? She wanted to know. I don't hear you or see your lips moving, her mother pointed out. The reply was, we just talk with our think. So how does Ali appear to you? Does he wear clothes? No, not clothes like we wear. There seems to be about him a beautiful something, so fine, thin and glistening, and so white. And she added, yet there's not a fold or a sign of a thread in it. So it can't be cloth, but it makes him look lovely. Upon which her father suggested, he's clothed with light as a garment. Yes, Daisy agreed, that's it. The Dryden's daughter had such a vivid sense of her future life and happiness that her dread of death was entirely dispelled. The mystery of the soul's departure was no mystery to her. There was only a continuation of life, a growing up from conditions of earth life into the air and sunshine of heaven. The morning of the day she died, she asked her mother for a small mirror, But Mother hesitated, thinking the sight of her emaciated face would come as a shock to Daisy. But her father insisted. Let her look at her poor little face if she wants to. And taking the glass in her 2 hands, she looked at her image calmly and sadly. This body of mine is about worn out, she acknowledged. It's like the old dress of Mamma's hanging in the closet that she doesn't wear anymore, and I won't wear my body anymore because I have a spiritual body to take its place. Indeed, I have it already, since it's with my spiritual eyes that I see the heavenly world, while my earth body is still here. You'll lay my body in the grave because I'll not need it again. I shall have a beautiful body like Ali's. And then she turned to her mother, asking her to open the shutters so she could look out at the world for the last time. Before another morning, I shall be gone, she informed them. Raise me up, Papa. Then, supported by her father, she looked through the window, calling out, Goodbye, sky. Goodbye, trees. Goodbye, flowers. Goodbye, white rose. Goodbye, red rose. Goodbye, beautiful world. And she added, How I love it, but I don't wish to stay. That evening, when it was 8:30, she announced, It's 8:30 now. When it's 11:30, Ali will come for me. As she said this, she was lying against her father's chest, and her head was on his shoulder, her favourite position. She said, Papa, I want to die here. When the time comes, I'll tell you. Lulu had been singing for her that evening, and as it was 8:30, which was Lulu's bedtime, she rose to go. Bending over Daisy, she kissed her as always to bid good night. Daisy, stroking her sister's face, replied, Good night. And when Lulu was halfway up the stairs, she called again in her clear, earnest tone, Good night and goodbye, my sweet, darling Lulu. At about 11:15, Daisy said, Now, Papa, take me up again. Ali has come for me. After her father had done so, she asked those present to sing for her, and someone said, Call Lulu. But Daisy promptly said, Don't disturb her, she's asleep. Then, just as the hands of the clock pointed to the 11:30, the time predicted that Ali would arrive to take her with him, she lifted up both arms and said, Come, Ali, and she breathed no more. Laying her lifeless body on the pillow, her father said, The dear child has gone and will suffer no more. Well, that marks the end of Daisy's deathbed vision, which appeared at slightly greater length in the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research, Volume 12, Number 6, edited by Dr. James Hislop. I wonder if any of the folk who've been viewing this video have had their own similar experiences. Interestingly, many who've had these visions appear to lose all fear of their demise. Thanks for listening.